All right, we got a lot of ground to cover in a very short time period, so I'm going to give you the go. All right, since the beginning of mankind, we've been tool makers. And as we've evolved, so the objects that we make have evolved. And industrial designers are basically the people who make the objects we use every day. A classic example is the Zippo cigarette lighter, which we all are familiar with. However, there is a little bit of a problem with the stuff we've been making. We're finding out real quickly that throwing things away is not an answer on how to deal with something. So this presentation is focusing around how do we make objects that are more sustainable for the world so we don't have this problem. The term green has been thrown around a lot in the media. Green this, green that. It's not strong enough. It doesn't embody enough of what we need to do. I like to use the word sustainability, which I interchange with the word maintainability. As in, can we maintain this? Can we keep going this course? That's the objective of what we're going here in this presentation with. Right now, in the past couple of years, we're seeing the very first examples of sustainable design. The gizmos on the top generate their own electrical power, so no batteries, and the objects on the bottom are made from discarded materials that have been brought together, quote unquote, upcycled into making new objects. While these are a good first step, they're a little bit narrow in focus, and here's why. In order to understand how to build objects sustainably, we have to understand a full life cycle of an object. We totally understand the human life cycle because we experience it all the time, right? However, objects also have a life cycle, but we don't get to see everything that the objects go through. We're familiar with number 3 the most. That's when we own and possess and use an object. But we know very little about how it's designed, how it's manufactured, and what happens to it when we're done using it. So we have to understand all these points in order to make something more sustainable. I'm actually moving along pretty good. Ooh, what happened? Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. Anyway, there's 4 main life stages, and of course they're not on here. The future effects of the excuse me, I feel like we're having some super technical difficulties, dude. I'll keep going, yeah. So let's keep rolling. There's 4 life stages of all objects. First stage affects the other stages, the domino effect. And the second stage is we want to conserve resources, how we build things. It's the difference between cooking yourself a 5-course meal and cooking yourself or making yourself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. One takes a lot less effort, time, energy, labor to do than the other. So we have an example up here. We have 2 pens. One pen has a lot more parts than the other pen. The pen that has more parts, those extra pieces take time, labor, energy, and effort to make. When you multiply that at mass scale, so 100,000 times, that's a lot of extra pieces, and that's a lot of extra parts going in to make one pen versus the other, so a consumption of resources. The next stage is how we use the objects in our world. So we want to extend the life of an object as much as possible. When we own it, we usually keep an object anywhere from a few minutes to less than 5 years, and that's not enough time for the things that we own. So how do we extend the usable life of the objects? So 2 examples here. Disposable razor will probably last, what, a week maybe, with packaging, and then gone. The razor on the right is from the 1960s. I still use it regularly. All it takes is a simple blade and paper packaging, and it's obviously a better solution than a disposable razor. The last stage is to plan for what we do next. So what is going to happen when we're done using all these things? This is the last stage. And what's important here is that we haven't planned for this before. We just threw things away. So now this is in our pool of considerations when we make our objects for the world. So there's a couple things we can do. We can repurpose something. We can recycle and make new objects from discarded objects. This cabinet's made from little bits of wood glued together. In the corner, this is actually recycled plastic turned into lumber. We also have to consider how we dismantle objects when we dispose of them, and what do we do with all those little bits and pieces when we're done. A quick note on recycling. Everybody knows what it is. Everybody's yay recycling. Recycling is a good thing, but it's not a great thing because it only views objects as materials, and it doesn't look at utility value of an object. So in the eyes of recycling, that wheel and that soda can are the same exact thing. versus the utility of the wheel being used for something else. This is my personal project. It's called Recompute. It's a sustainable computer design that I did here at U of H, and I'm going to use it as an example of how we can build more sustainable objects, starting with the production stage. The case is made of a single material, cardboard, and it uses low-impact manufacturing processes, which is die cutting, stamping things out like a cookie cutter, and gluing together with non-toxic white glue. It's so simple you can actually put it together by hand. The students below here from Pearland High School, they're building a kit for their class, and this is how simple it is. You can bring it together and yet have a big effect. The next stage is how do we give ourselves flexibility in how we use things. I noticed in the computers, people used USB ports much the same way we use electrical outlets in the house. So why not give the flexibility of plugging in what you need when you need it and unplugging it when you don't, rather than fusing an object with a bunch of bells and whistles that you don't need. The final stage is the post-life. E-waste is a big problem, electronic waste, and its main crux is the fact that it can't be dismantled properly. With this design, the whole computer can be taken apart, dismantled without tools in a matter of minutes, so that the electronic parts can then be properly disposed of away from the case, which is just a chunk of cardboard, which can go in with regular paper. So how do we do this? This is a new thing. We're cutting new ground here, and we're trying to shift the paradigm of how we build these objects in the world. And I'm Brenden Macaluso. I'm out of time, and sorry for the technical difficulties, but I think you guys got the idea of what's going on.